Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jungle, a Cincinnati Bengals podcast brought to you by the Riverfront and the folks at Blue Wire. My name is Owen Timberding, back again this week, joined with Caroline Palmer after her hiatus. Caroline, we're talking all things season 2 of quarterback today. As many of you guys have known, Joe Burrow was one of the featured athletes in Netflix's quarterback show documentary special. We've both watched it. I'm almost finished with it. Caroline has watched it, but we're going to break down our thoughts on it, how we think they portrayed Joe Burrow, and what we thought about the other quarterbacks. Before we get into that, Caroline, how are you today?
Doing good. Just getting everything ready. We were talking off pod. I go back to school tomorrow, so a couple more things that I have to get done. But other than that, doing pretty good.
That's awesome. So let's just get right into it. Like I said before, on record saying that I did not watch the first season of quarterback because I was uninterested by Patrick Mahomes and Marcus Mariota in this first iteration of Kirk Cousins. Mostly it came from Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure there's a ton of people who feel the same way about the Joe Burrow content that we have, because if you go on social media, the every other post is something related to what Joe Burrow said on the show, whether it's fossils or the Batmobile or how he handled the break-in or how he interacts with his teammates. I think it's really funny, and I think it's really, really cool that we get to see just kind of an inside look on how Joe Burrow, your quarterback, our quarterback, gets to pretty much spend his life inside and outside of football.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I've seen season one, so
Mhm,
I did watch season one, and for me, it was also very interesting to see how the production changed between season
mhm,
one and season two. I think the formatting of how they did the episodes is very different, which
mhm.
I still can't fully grasp on whether I liked it better or not in terms of just regular episode formatting. But yeah, I thought the Joe Burrow stuff was really interesting, but I honestly really liked what they did with Jared Goff and honestly
Yeah,
with the revamping of Kirk Cousins as well. I think it was another very interesting year for them to have quarterback. And I think there's not a lot of guys they could have picked in a situation that I think that would have gone better than the three that they chose for this year.
I agree. I was telling someone I really think they all work together really well on the show
Mhm.
because they're all so different. I was also I don't hate Jared Goff, but I was always just like, oh, like whatever, it's Jared Goff. I have a lot more respect and appreciation for him just as a football player because he's really had to go through some. I mean, this obviously I want to talk the bulk about Joe Burrow in this, but Jared Goff's gone through a lot of football adversity. I mean, number one pick, then gets traded from the team that drafted him to this city that's struggling with find a winner, and they have for 30 years. And here he comes right in and helps as a part of that immediate culture shift. And I just think it's cool how he interacts with his wife and how he interacts with his teammates as well. I thought they did a really good job, almost accidentally, of having Kirk Cousins, who's this mega family man, his kids and his wife were in everything. Then it was just Jared Goff and his wife, and then it's just Joe Burrow by himself in all of these like cutscenes, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and they kinda did the same thing last season too, except it
Mhm.
was, Mariota
Yeah,
just kind of got 2 by himself, but
yeah.
again, it's just the way it happened. They probably just didn't want Joe Burrow to feel too bad, and they've got family Joe Burrow.
It legitimately was, and they spent a lot of time. The majority of Kirk Cousins' like time was him playing with his kids, which I thought was really really cool, and how they emphasized that yeah, I'm a football player, but I'm a father first, and it's important for me to even if I come home from a tough day to be right there at the door with waiting for my kids to do whatever to make them feel valued, to make them
Mhm.
feel appreciated in our life here because they really don't know any better. And I just think it's funny. I thought it was especially funny when when his family would go to the games and the kids really had no idea what was going on. even though they were super football fans, they were just like, oh, like whatever, this doesn't really make any sense. But I thought it was really funny how the differences in uh, like Kirk Cousins obviously is this big time NFL quarterback, and the kids just didn't know anything that was going on. Obviously, they were
Yeah.
3 or whatever, but I said it was funny.
Yeah, but I do think it was interesting. I saw a statistic that was talking about how much episode time each of the quarterbacks got throughout all
Hmm.
8 episodes. Kirk Cousins was 87 minutes, Jared Goff was 95 minutes, and Joe Burrow was 109 minutes.
Yeah,
So,
you.
Joe Burrow had the most screen time. And then this was interesting, like, when I talk about, like, episode format, they said that 6 of the 8 episodes begin with Joe Burrow after the opening montage,
Hmm.
which I think is really interesting because it's almost like, to me, like, that looks like a viewer retention technique.
Oh yeah,
And so that just, like, caught my attention from just, like, a media standpoint. Is like we've talked about on multiple occasions that Joe Burrow is not only an NFL quarterback, he is a mainstream celebrity, especially when you look at the US scene, just
absolutely.
in terms of who he is, and I do think that that is their, like, attempt or their, like, way of trying to retain that audience that maybe wouldn't be tuning in if Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins was the first person you saw on your screen.
That's definitely was a strategy there. You're right. Joe Burrow was at times it felt like we were just watching a Joe Burrow only documentary because even the times where they were just doing Bengals content, it was just long winded. Like his analysis of some of the games was longer than some of the quarterbacks. What's some stuff that surprised you about Joe Burrow and what we kind of learned about what he does, and what's something that you're like, oh, I kind of already figured he did this, but it was cool seeing that part heightened in his life.
I This is
Putting
gonna
you on the
be
spot here.
Yeah, I honestly was surprised by, how, like, down to earth he is. I
Hmm.
feel like especially in the way that he comes off to the media in his press reviews, he always has this, like, and I mean, it's not a bad thing, but he has this very, like, hard stone, hard set, like, kinda just, like, nonchalant and almost like a leans more towards an arrogant than a confident side to the press, but when you really got to see him in
Yeah.
quarterback, like, especially in the teammate interactions, he's kind of a he's kind of a weirdo, like, he's got
Yeah.
some weird facts in there that, like, you don't really expect, and, like, that caught me a little bit by surprise, especially because he has this whole, like, cool guy personality that, like, I feel like there was a lot of scenes and especially in his interactions with other people that really contradict the way he is to the media. And I mean, I guess you could say to a point that that's the way a lot of professional athletes are, but I don't
Hmm.
know why it surprised me so much with Joe Burrow than even like when I watched season one in comparison to how I felt when I saw that with Mahomes. I felt
Yeah.
like Burrow surprised me way more. And then on the flip side, I would say something that I already knew, but like I was very happy to see was kind of the Joe Burrow's mentality. I think he's very much
Hmm.
been known since his LSU days that he's had this very, like, set in stone mentality, and they interviewed him after the week 2 loss against Kansas City. They lost on the field goal, Harrison Butker, and they asked him, and they were like, "Alright, what is your reaction to that?" And he looks at the camera and goes, "It's just on to the next one." And it's,
Hmm.
like, an amazing mentality to have. I mean, as an athlete, like, you can't dwell on those things because if you do, it just ends up pining you down in the long run, but that was something for me that I knew that Joe Burrow had was that, like, really solid, like, mentality in terms of how he holds himself, but again, it was, like, very it was very good to see them highlighted on many different occasions, whether it was good and whether it was bad, which I think is important that you see it in both sides of that coin.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was how he interacted with his teammates, with the other
Mhm.
Bengals. Like, I I just never even thought about this, but obviously him and Jake Browning, the Bengals backup, have a solid relationship. They
Mhm.
work together every day. Obviously, him and some of the lower tier receivers and offensive linemen have a relationship They're with together every day. Like, he's friends with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The media put that out there before. You see that. You see how they hang out together outside of work. They went to college together. But it's seeing. I thought some of the Jake Browning stuff was cool because you rely so heavily on your backup to help you develop as a player. And I think, and we've talked about this before, is how well of a job we think Jake Browning does as a backup. And like Joe Burrow doesn't need someone to mentor him, but it. I think having a good back, and we're straying away, but I think having a good backup quarterback shows the strength and unity of a team. And clearly, him and Joe Burrow have a really strong relationship. The thing that surprised me was, and I don't know why this did, but it was just how involved his family is and how kind of close to the chest Joe Burrow keeps his family. The Obviously, like, I'm close with my family. I'm sure you are too. It's like,
Mhm.
but that's just something you don't think about when you are watching a professional athletes, that they have like this life with their family outside of football and athletics. So it was cool hearing a lot of the tidbits about how Joe Burrow grew up and how close he was with his mom, and how wanted to play basketball, and how he uh, just kind of. I think it's cool that he uses his like video game time to hang out with his best friends from like high school and middle
Mhm.
school. Like, those are I'm still best friends with with guys I've known since I was 4. And even
Mhm.
though I don't see them that much, when we do, I mean, they're my best friends. It doesn't really matter. So I
Yeah.
just think there's just like, it's fun seeing these guys as humans. And that's what I
Yeah.
think Netflix did a really, really good job with this group. And what they've done in all their sports documentaries is they've showed the highest of highs of these guys in their craft, deservedly so, but they've showed that they are just normal people at the end of the day.
Mhm. I mean, and I think that's important because I feel like, especially nowadays with social media, I think athletes and even celebrities in general are like put on this pedestal that they're almost like not real.
Hmm.
So I do think it's an element of reality TV that I think is missing in a lot of just like regular reality TV is making these people real people and elementing the real parts of their lives. And I do agree with you that sports documentaries, and specifically, I honestly think quarterback has done a better job than a lot of the other ones, which is surprising given how
Yeah.
new that one is compared to some of the more long-standing ones in other sports. But I do believe they did a really good job of humanizing them, which I think is so important because, like you said, they're human too. They have families, they have these lives, especially when you think of the way that people can instantly turn on someone or a group of individuals based on performance. I do think it's really important for us to remember at the end of the day that these guys are humans, just like you and I are, just like everybody listening is.
Yeah. The other big takeaway I had from it, not even really was about Joe. It wasn't even really about Joe Burrow, but it was just, oh my God, the Bengals cannot start the way they did last year, this year, because
It was
watching those games
painful.
again was really, really difficult to watch. Yeah, like after the first Baltimore game, I was like, oh, like they scored a lot of points, but like I remember how I felt when I watched that game and having to pretty much just relive all of the, because Joe Burrow said it perfectly after the Dallas game or after one of the Denver games. He's like, finally, we just had one of those bounce our way. And it just was like, oh my God, they're feeling the same way we all did, which was just, we just could not get out of our own way. And I thought it was really cool that we finally got that audio from the Titans game where Burrow is frustrated after a really kind of sloppy performance by the Bengals offense and defense in a
Mhm.
game where they should have probably handily beaten Tennessee, and they ended up doing it fine. But the that kind of was the start of this run the Bengals went on too. So I just thought it was interesting how Joe Burrow kept something like that in. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, he had full power and trust with Peyton Manning and with consultation that he could have cut something like that. But the fact that he kept it in, I think shows, one, his character, and two, I think it sets something important that you need to showcase that goes through an NFL quarterback's mind during the game, or the frustrations and emotions they feel throughout.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's important. I also think it's a part of Peyton, and I feel like this is where Peyton Manning is like, okay, we need to show another different side of Joe Burrow because
Yeah,
I do think a lot of people would have expected him in that situation, just kind of like be nonchalant, move
yeah,
on. But I think it's really important to see that he does get riled up, he does get frustrated. And I think also the fact that they showed a game where they were winning and were most likely going to
yeah,
win, that he got frustrated, and not a game where they were getting blown out. Like, I think the placement of that was crucial, and I think they nailed it. Because I think they got exactly the point they needed to get across, where he is a leader, he strives for the best, and that's exactly what his 2024 season was. And I think that that's like a really good representation of who Joe Burrow is as a person because he always wants the best out of himself, out of the people around him. And I don't think you would have gotten that if you would have played a clip like that from a game where they're getting blown out because that probably was the
yeah,
same scenario, but that would have just sounded like he's complaining about his team losing. Like it wouldn't have given the same message. So I think they nailed it with
yeah.
the placement of
I,
that.
I'm really happy they didn't. They probably definitely had every opportunity just to load up with all of those losses with audio of him complaining. Like you can't tell me with a straight face. You're lying to me if you said Joe Burrow sat there and just ate it all and was just like, oh well. Like if he was that frustrated after a win, you got to think he said choice words and acted in different ways when they were
Yeah.
losing these gut wrenching games. So I think it was a really smart play on the production side because it would have gotten a little boring to have it just be okay, Bengals lose again. Here's Joe Burrow mouthing off on the sidelines. Instead, they wait for probably the perfect time, this turning point in the Bengals season. They wait for this perfect time where he played fine, the Bengals played fine, but he was still aggravated. And I think it's a perfect clip that kind of encapsulates the Bengals season and just it was so frustrating to watch all those games they lost again. That's more what I'm like getting towards too. It is just it was hard to go from seeing the Bengals blow another one right to Jared Goff and the Lions going whatever they did, 15-2 or 13-2. I
Yeah.
haven't did they show playoff stuff when they lose? I didn't watch. I haven't finished it yet.
I still have the last episode left, so I don't know.
Okay, well, we're both on the last episode then. We'll have to
Yeah,
talk about what
but
we thought. I'm assuming they do because they
yeah,
finished like the timing doesn't really necessarily match up with all of the quarterbacks all at once.
yeah.
But what are your thoughts? And this was another this isn't Joe Burrow, but this is something I was also really impressed with was how daggone good Kirk Cousins was handled when he got benched and how
Oh
like
my gosh.
he knew it was coming. And just this I mean obviously we're only getting this much into how these guys are actually feeling, and I'm sure he was crushed. But to just be on this pedestal during like this crushing moment in your career after he had played really, really well. In the beginning, part of my takeaway from him was that after the first 4 episodes or whatever, I was like, man, the Falcons were like kind of good. I kind of forget about this. And
Mhm.
he played really well. And I was like, when does this happen? When does like this cliff fall off happen? And then they showed it in real time. And it was I was really impressed with how he acted as a leader in the organization. Just it's just something you like to see in situations like that, you know?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have a multitude of respect for Kirk Cousins and players like Kirk Cousins. I For me, the reason I follow NFL players outside of the teams that I follow is due to who they are as people. And
Hmm.
I think that Kirk Cousins is one of the best examples in the entire league of just being a good person.
Oh yeah,
And he is mature, he is responsible, and you can tell that he is a father. And I know that Michael Penix is 20 years older than his kids, but you
yeah,
can tell that Kirk Cousins is a father. And I
yeah,
think that that is part of the reason why he
yeah.
reacted the way that he did,
You're right.
because he has this opportunity, and you are kind of seeing it with Joe Flacco a little bit now in Cleveland to just bounce around a little bit. But they have this opportunity to almost be like a dad figure in a way. And we all know that Kirk Cousins is exemplary and fantastic in that role with his own family. But it's again kind of what we talked about earlier with Joe Burrow. If Kirk Cousins just sat there and because he could have sat there in self-pity and cried about it and made it some whole big ordeal like we've seen other people do when they get benched. But he was like, "You know what? No," because they were still in contention for the NFC South at that point because the NFC
Mhm.
South was so bad that it was gonna come down to week 18. You can
Yeah.
laugh all you want, but it was true. They were
No, it's
horrible.
true.
And they went down with the Bucks to the wire. And if he sat there and just blew up that organization because he was angry about one thing that only impacted one person, he sacrifices his entire team's chance at a playoff spot in a division where they could get a home playoff game.
Mhm.
And for me, I think his reaction was so important. Obviously, unfortunately, Falcons did miss out on the playoffs, but I do think they're in a prime spot this year to be the best team in that division because of how they handled controversy. And what's so important to me is that he came in and he was new to that team, coming off injury. No one really knew where he was going to go. And I just think he's a great example for that very young Falcons locker room. And I think that that's really important. And again, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent about someone who isn't Joe
No,
Burrow,
but it's
but
cool.
like I think that they're heading in the right direction. And I think a lot of that has to do with Kirk Cousins, I think before and after the benching, but he's a leader. And I feel like we've never really gotten to see that until maybe his last year with the Vikings and now this, because obviously he's been through the ringer as well. But I mean, I have so much respect for him. And I think it
Same.
only grew watching this season.
I, I feel the same way about Joe.
Mhm.
You never viewed him from the outside perspective as, like, this big rah-rah guy, and he self-admittedly said that he wasn't too, but he's like there was one scene where he was like, I don't like yelling at people. I don't like getting yelled at, so why would I yell at them? I never been this big, like, rah-rah speech guy." But there's a scene where the locker room doors are closed, and Sam Hubbard is giving the Bengals pregame speech because he was team captain. And at the end, Burrow was like, "Sam, I got to say something." And I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
okay." You're seeing this isn't the guy I've followed before. Like, I think it was really, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago too, is how, like, we've seen Joe Burrow grow up in the NFL from this babyface kid that got drafted number one at LSU to kind of this assassin that is like one of the most feared people in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, like, the self-awareness on his end to realize, all right, I got to take a step up in some way too. It's cool. It's really neat seeing how these teams were made. Like, and like, you could
Yes.
say what you want. These guys fight. They're
Yep.
professional athletes. I'm at the Reds game yesterday, and I'm watching the Colorado Rockies play the Reds, and the Rockies won yesterday. Rockies have 22 wins. Worst team in major leagues. They're on pace to have one of the worst records in major league history. But these guys show up to work every day, and they're professional athletes, and they give it 100%, 100% of the time. And they're different examples, baseball and football, but the way these guys are wired is just so incredible. I can't believe Joe Burrow could have totally thrown the towel in like week 7. Instead, he dragged the Bengals to a week 18 scenario where they have to had some help, but he dragged them there and made the season at least something worth watching for everyone in Cincinnati and himself. And he
Yeah.
almost won and if the Bengals make the playoffs, he wins the MVP.
Oh, yeah. I
That's
think
like
we've said
really
that.
what happens. Yeah. It's so cool seeing how these guys operate. I loved the preparation aspects
Mhm.
too. Like, it's just stuff you don't. Yeah, like, obviously they prepare, but like, do they prepare at home? I didn't never really thought about that. Yeah, they do. Jared Goff sits in his office and watches film. Kirk Cousins has all those notebooks. I thought that was sick that
Mhm.
he keeps them all too and references them when they're playing specific teams and specific coaches. It was super impressive humanizing these guys and seeing how they operate inside and outside an NFL stadium. And really, just the position itself requires you to be a leader. And you see now why some of these guys don't work out in the NFL.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Based on seeing how
Yeah.
these guys work. It's because they are missing something. And what they're missing is what the three guys they showed in quarterback had, which was the way they galvanize and captivize a group of men and individuals to form one unit group.
Yeah. You
That
just
was
got to
pretty
be a
cool.
different breed to play quarterback.
It's totally different than almost I'd say any position in sport, because there is one person you can put the blame on, and it's yourself almost 100% of the time. Like I kind of got tired of hearing the Joe Burrow. Here's the other thing too. You never heard Joe Burrow complaining about the defense or anything like that. I mean, obviously, again, it's stuff he's a human. He definitely thought it. I'm sure he had
Yeah.
conversations with people about that, but like they could have made that a whole big thing. They
Yeah.
didn't. It's little things like that that go a long way to preserving a group identity.
Hmm.
And I came away very impressed with how the Bengals portrayed. I mean, how Netflix not only portrayed Joe Burrow, but portrayed the Bengals.
Yes. And I
And
think
we
that's
know,
very important
yes, I think that's important. I agree.
because, especially at the beginning of the season, and if you see, like, I'm thinking about it from a player's perspective. Because I'm assuming some of these players watch the show. I mean, some of them will be like, oh, I make a 5-second cameo in episode 3. Let me watch it. Like, you know that some of them and their families will go and watch it, especially if they're friends with the quarterbacks and whatever. If I'm a player and I'm going on to watch a show like that, and all of a sudden I see my quarterback absolutely throwing shots at what I was doing, that's horrible for
Yeah.
team chemistry. Absolutely horrible. And we've talked about it, I fear, every episode, but like the Bengals cannot afford that this year.
No.
The last thing they needed was to hear Joe Burrow, their nonchalant quarterback, talking crap about their defense,
No.
which
And
I
he
think
knows that.
that's Peyton Manning stepping in going, "Okay, that doesn't need to be aired." I don't even know how much Joe Burrow, knowing who he is, would have even shared that with production. That would have been more like something his just like my on-field mic would have picked up.
Hmm.
But I do think it's important. I mean, you could say that for any team, but obviously we're
Oh,
a
yeah.
Bengals podcast, but to keep that team chemistry intact, especially given where we are
Hmm.
currently in the whole NFL pre-prep for preseason. I do think it's important that because we've talked about how this Bengals offseason needed to be just block after block after block after block place. We really didn't need the tower knocked over right now.
Hmm.
So I do
Yeah,
think
I
they did a good
agree.
job preserving it.
I agree. They definitely, I mean, what was stopping them from making this essentially just a hit piece on the Bengals organization? Like, really nothing. Like, they could have centered a lot of stuff around that, but like, Joe Burrow's not going to sit there and take that. I thought it was
No.
impressive. And he said that from day one. He was like, I think people are going to like it. I, I, I only did it because I knew Peyton Manning would help protect myself and the organization.
Yeah.
Goes a long way, man. You like
Yeah.
hearing that kind of stuff. The
Absolutely.
I mean, we'll see. Maybe we got. Do you think Jamar Chase would ever do receiver? I don't think so.
If
That
he
is,
would do it, it would be this year after
yeah,
he got paid all that money. So if
yeah,
he doesn't do it this year, I don't think he would. But I would not be surprised if
that would
he's
be
one of the
crazy.
first people they go after.
They definitely even asked them on that first go around too, but it's
Yeah.
like they don't, just like they also probably asked Joe Burrow on that first go around, which would
Mhm.
have been a better season to follow him. So thanks, Joe. But
Yeah.
he
He just didn't trust the producers yet, probably.
yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cool. Thumbs up on my end. I got to finish it still, but I was
Yeah.
really impressed with how it was, and it was a good summer. Like the way, so the timing of this is all stuff they think about. Like the timing of it now lines up well with the beginning of training camp, and now I'm kind of juiced for
Mhm.
football season already, even though we're in the
Yeah.
middle of like, these dog days of summer. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited already, and it kind of brought some new hope and excitement for the Bengals season on my end.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So
I think it'll be good.
any NFL news? I'm just gonna type in NFL news on Google and see if anything glaring pops
I'm
up.
trying to think off the top of my head if I can
It's
really.
been a slow news week.
I was gonna say the last big thing I can remember, and I just don't think I was on the pod for this, was that Steelers Dolphins trade fiasco.
Oh yeah, and Tim and I talked
Or
about that too.
yeah, I mean I wasn't there for that, and I know you guys
Yeah.
talked about it, but that was like The big thing to me was whatever
Yeah, it's
was
dope.
going on in the 2 combined brain cells of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins for that trade. Because I
Yeah,
genuinely don't know who won there, because I feel like you could make arguments for both teams. That honestly feels like they both lost rather than one of them won, but
yeah. The
trying to think of anything else
I
that's
mean, Ryan Poles got that extension.
yeah.
I'm looking at headlines right now, and it's all about the first one I'm seeing is something about CBS and 3 Lions former head coaches make CBS's list of quote worst NFL hires of this century.
Oh,
So,
that's
so
nice.
we need actual football back soon. This is what I'm getting at from
Yeah,
this.
it's getting not great, but
We're almost
again,
there.
I'll
What
be
is
really there's a couple of, like, I mean, I feel like the Bengals obviously have the Hendrickson and the Shamar Stewart situations, but I've
oh
really
my
been keeping
yeah, I haven't even thought about that.
no, I haven't either. I'm just saying in terms of, like, what's still out there. I'm interested to see how the TJ Watt situation goes in Pittsburgh too.
Sam.
I've been watching that. And then I'm also very interested to see who starts come week 1 for the Cleveland Browns.
Sam.
Just I don't think it's Shador, but I think any of the other 3 have a pretty good shot. So, we'll
Chargers,
see.
Chargers rookies report to camp today,
Oh,
July 12th. And the
nice.
Bengals full squad reports July 22nd, along with
Alright.
the bulk of the team. So that's when most people are coming
Yeah,
or beginning training camp. A lot of it is rookies up until
are
then,
there early.
starting
Yeah,
between now and the 12th.
yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. The Bengals do it. I might go to training camp this year.
Hmm,
It's just at the stadium. So I mean, it's just at the practice field. Nothing too glamorous, but
yeah.
it's cool. I think it's funny how we've seen a lot more teams move from like the Bengals used to drive down to uh, Georgetown, Kentucky, which is like 15 minutes outside of Lexington, and they would do training camp there. But instead, now they just like that didn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
where did they drive
That's like
to?
the Panthers. The Panthers do theirs in South Carolina, which is like 30, 40 minutes from where
Whoa,
Bank of America is in
where
Charlotte.
do the where do the Panthers did they do it at a college?
I believe so.
See, I think that's what makes a lot of sense is they make these guys stay at dorms too if they do the
Mhm.
college thing. Like the Bills do that. I know that for a fact. I don't know what like the Bills do. I know they do it at college and they dorm up. So it's
Yeah,
yeah, Kansas City's doing it at a college. A lot of people are just doing it at their training facility, which makes sense. Carolina
yeah.
Panthers are doing theirs at Bank of America this year.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I did see that. I know in the past they've gone down to South Carolina, but I do think that they've also built a facility in Charlotte now. So I know
Cool.
technically they're Carolina, so they could go both, but
They could go anywhere. All right, I got nothing. Good review on quarterback. I'd say it was one of the better
yeah,
things I watched on Netflix in the last month or so. So I'm
yeah,
happy
it's
that
been
it
pretty
was.
good.
I think I probably would have watched it even if Joe Burrow wasn't in this one at this
Yeah,
time.
me too.
But
Yeah,
it just made it better. All right, everyone. So thanks for tuning into this week's edition of Welcome to the Jungle for Caroline Palmer. My name is Owen Timmerding. We will keep you informed on any Bengals news as we update you throughout the next couple weeks as we catapult our way into training camp and the regular season in the NFL. For Caroline, I'm Owen. Have a good one, folks. Who day?